What's up, NoelStrong fam? So I'm actually really excited to get this video out for you. This is a question that is asked not only often to me, but a lot of people that I see on YouTube. How do you grow muscle? How do you gain muscle? It's a very, very confusing thing because there's a lot of things that go into it. Before I actually jump into how to gain muscle, what I want you guys to realize is that your nutrition definitely has to be in place, meaning you have to be getting in adequate protein because that's what actually builds and repairs muscle, and you have to be getting adequate carb in order to have a fueled workout to where it's efficient enough to actually tax the muscles to grow, and so on and so forth. Jumping into how do you grow muscle, I'm going to make this a few quick points and as minimal as possible and as simple as possible to understand because it can get very confusing, but it is very good to know the foundational base of how to build muscle because yes, there's training, yes, there's different types of training, but there's actual certain mechanics of actual growing muscle. So let's jump into it. So I just want to say this before we actually jump into going over how to grow muscle. Guys, GYMSHARK has a ton of different releases coming up this month, and they also have a ton of like bundle giveaway type things. So I always leave my GYMSHARK link at the top of my description box, and or it is always in my Instagram bio. So if you don't not follow me on Instagram, I'll go ahead and link it here. Also, I have a discount code for 20% off of any BPI supplements, and that's gonna apply to bpisports.com, not bodybuilding.com, but bpisports.com. So again, my code is Noel in all caps, and this is always gonna be found in my description box. All right guys, so let's get to the nitty gritty of this actual video. So part of actual muscle building, which you guys are gonna find kind of funny, is actually when you get a pump in the gym. So what happens is when you get that pump in the gym, what's going on is your cells are swelling, right? So they see this as a threat. So they either say, okay, well, I either need to grow or I'm just gonna die. Pretty much that's what's going on. So they reconstruct themselves and get larger. How do we continue to increase this, right? So I'm sure you guys have heard of, or if you haven't, now you have, there's the fast twitch muscle fibers, which are the bigger muscle fibers that get recruited when we lift heavier. So you wanna recruit these fast twitch muscle fibers. And then there's also the small twitch muscle fibers, which you want to recruit as well to continue increasing this cell growth and this cells like adapting to this growth. So slow twitch muscle fibers are going to be more recruited when we do more endurance type things, okay? And then again, fast twitch is when you're doing heavier weight and you're kind of staying in between the rep ranges of 6 to 8 reps. So there needs to be endurance type work going on. There needs to be heavy lifting going on. So a lot of people ask, how long of rest periods should I be taking? So if you're doing more of a bodybuilding type regimen to where you're doing higher volume, you're doing more, I would say, isolation movements, then I would recommend keeping your rest periods between 30 seconds to a minute, and we'll go over why. When you are doing a heavier day and you're doing more so compound movements, and this is obviously focused on your heavy day, which your compound movements are going to be sticking between the ranges. Again, I'm just going to use the basic standard ranges of 6 to 8 reps. You want to make sure that your rest periods are, I would say, anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, okay? You want to take longer rest periods. So another thing to keep the muscles adapting in order to grow is something called metabolic stress. So what this is essentially is when we're taking shorter rest periods in between. So when you are working out and you feel like your muscle burning, when we want to stop lifting, when we feel it burning, what's happening is it's filling up with lactic acid, okay? Lactic acid is actually what helps the muscle grow. But what happens with this is we have to make sure that we're keeping our rest periods in between a lot shorter, because say you see those people at the gym all the time, no offense, but we all see them, we all witness them. They go in there and they do these they do the lifts, okay? We're focusing more so on bodybuilding lifts here, shorter rest periods, and they take 5 minutes in between each set. So when you take 5 minutes in between each set with more so light voluminous work, not big compound movements. We need rest with big compound movements on heavier days. So when you see them taking like 5-minute breaks and then you don't, because they're talking to people and you don't feel the lactic acid or burning anymore, it just goes out the window, guys. So we have to stay consistent when we are doing like our more hypertrophy days, which you'll hear me refer to that. So there's hypertrophy days, we have voluminous days, and then there's heavy days when you have when your compound movements are gonna be a lot more heavier and the reps are gonna be between 6 to 8 reps, okay? We need hypertrophy, we need strength days in order to keep the muscles adapting, recovering, adapting, recovering, and then growing. So lactic acid building up, when you are doing more hypertrophy days, you wanna make sure that your rest sets in between are anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, okay? This is really what's going to help your muscles grow as much as possible. So on your hypertrophy days, make sure that you're keeping your rest periods a lot shorter. So this is gonna be days that the hypertrophy days are anywhere between 8 to 12 reps, okay? A more voluminous workout. Next, in order to keep the muscles growing, to keep them adapting, is gonna be mechanical stress. So this more so is gonna be, we just went over metabolic stress, now mechanical stress. So this is gonna be more so when we have our heavier days, okay? So heavier days, our rep ranges are gonna be anywhere from 6 to 8 reps. The weight that we're gonna be pushing is a lot heavier. So what mechanical stress is essentially, we're not talking about powerlifting here at all, guys. We're talking more so about just how to train correctly in order to grow the muscle, right? The title of this video was Grow the Muscle. So mechanical stress is when you get the most out of every single rep that you possibly do. So this is gonna be on heavier days, okay? So this is where it's gonna be, your rep ranges are between 6 to 8 reps, and you wanna take longer rest periods. Why do you wanna take longer rest periods? Because you wanna maximize the mechanical load, lifting as heavy as you possibly can per each rep. You want each rep to count. You want each rep's form to be on point to make sure that you're hitting the correct muscle groups. Because these are obviously gonna be more so compound movements. You wanna make sure that you are rested enough. So here I'm gonna recommend 1.5 to 2 minute rest period breaks in between these movements, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna be maximizing each load, and each time you lift, it's gonna be just as heavy as the rep was before, even if you're sticking in between the rep ranges of 6 to 8 reps. Is that making more sense? Again, if you guys have any questions and you're confused on anything, please comment below, because I pretty much touched up my knowledge on this before I did this video. So I was already aware with it, but then I went into depth because I like going into depth with you guys. I know it could be overwhelming, but it's better to know everything that goes into it than just to vaguely know stuff. I would rather know everything that goes into muscle building, because it is something that is important to me. Another thing is going to be training more frequently. So with this, you want to make sure that as you become a more advanced lifter, you're gonna be having to lift certain muscle groups more frequently. This is also something that I don't know if you've heard it before, but it's also referred to as progressive overload, okay? So the more frequently you train a muscle, the more progress in the long run that you're gonna get. As opposed to training it twice a week, imagine training that muscle group 4 times a week. So there's gonna be certain things, like with compound movements, I would suggest keeping it to 3 times a week. Big movements like squats, deadlifts, bench, stuff like that. So think about it, the more frequently you train a muscle, the more that it's gonna be forced to grow. So even if you go into the gym the next day and you're not as recovered, you know, and you don't have the absolute best performance, no matter what, you're beating that muscle up so frequently per week, say 3 to 4 times a week, that it really has no choice other than to grow, okay? So you wanna make sure that you're not overdoing the compound movements, because that could be overtraining. I know that could get confusing, but that's a whole nother topic that we could absolutely get into. So you could train muscles up to 3 to 4 times a week. And this, I will say, guys, comes with going on with muscle maturity, okay? So the more frequent you train, the more your muscle will grow. So another thing is making sure that you're incorporating compound movements. So what compound movements do, other than them being the actual like base of your most of your training routines that you'll see most of the time, compound movements. So compound movements are gonna be the base of your actual like training regimens, training protocols, training routine, okay? But you also should be incorporating isolation movements as well. I don't want you to shy away from those, because those help solely focus on just like that one individual muscle group, and they're more efficient, okay? They're more efficient for obviously focusing on individual muscle groups. So if you want your physique to be the best, then you have to be incorporating compound movements, because it hits all muscle groups more frequently, and then isolation movements because it hits muscles. It's an isolation movement, so you want to make sure that you're focusing on certain muscles by their individual selves in order for them to progress and grow as efficient as possible. So include compound movements and include isolation movements. They're both really important, but compound movements are going to be the actual foundation of your training routine. Another smaller thing to keep in mind is changing up the exercises that you're doing. We want to shock the muscle as much as possible in order for it to grow, okay? So the more shocking that goes on, the more growing, the more gains, okay? So you want to make sure that you don't have to necessarily do this weekly, but I would say being on like a 4-week regiment and then going ahead and changing up your exercises. So make sure that you're changing up your exercises. It doesn't have to be in excess amounts, like every single day you're changing your exercises. Your muscles are still gonna get worked even if you're doing a lot of similar exercises, but you wanna mostly change up your isolation movements, okay? The compound movements are always gonna be doing their main job, but switching up the isolation movements will help with shocking the muscle and helping it grow. Last but not least, guys, periodizing your training. Means days you go in, you're gonna have hypertrophy days, which is AKA volume. So on your compound movements, your rep ranges are gonna be around 8 to 12 reps with 30 seconds to 1 minute rest, okay? And then you're gonna have your strength days where when you go in, it's gonna range between 6 to 8 reps. And this is when it's gonna be like 6 to 8 reps more so on your compound movements, and the rest should range between 1 minute to 2 minutes, okay? So you wanna maximize mechanical stresses, you wanna maximize those metabolic stresses and all of that, guys. You have to have your hypertrophy days, you have to have your heavy days in order to gain muscle, to grow, to make the muscle cells swell, and for the muscles to adapt and to recover and to grow, okay? All this stuff is so important. That's why for most of you women in particular that are like, I don't wanna lift heavy, I'm gonna get bulky. Well then say bye to progress, because you need to have heavy days. You need to be lifting heavy in order to tax your muscle, in order for it to grow, okay? So don't be afraid of heavy lifting. I'm not saying go in there and do one maximal lift with like the heaviest weight, like as if you're powerlifting, okay? That's a little bit different. But keeping in the rep ranges from 6 to 8, which is kind of still high even if you're doing like a heavier day, and keeping the loads heavy on the heavy days. Don't be afraid of the heavy days, ladies, okay? They are gonna bless you with the muscle growth. They're gonna bless you with all the gains, all the muscle gains, okay guys? Hope that wasn't too much for you guys to take in. That is the foundation of actually growing muscle. So now you know. So again, it's gonna be recruiting those muscle fibers, metabolic and mechanical stress, frequency, how many times you're hitting that muscle group per week. You need compound movements and you need isolation movements. Changing up the exercise. It doesn't have to be weekly, guys, but I would recommend every 4 to 6 weeks changing up the exercises that you're doing in order to shock the muscle. And periodize your training. You need hypertrophy days, which are more voluminous days, and you need heavier days, which are gonna be a little more tapered, lower on the reps, but you're gonna be lifting heavier weight. This is every single thing that you need in order to grow muscle, to gain muscle, and all of these points are very important, okay? Another thing, make sure that your nutrition is in place, because if your nutrition isn't in place, you may not see muscle growth and you may not see progress. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Welcome if you are new to my channel. I do a lot of like informative videos, and I also keep it very vlog based to where you just see my day-to-day life. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up if you'd like to see more videos like this. I brought this video sooner than later because you guys really liked the in-depth one that I went on to tips for squatting for beginners. Please give this video a thumbs up. It helps me out a freaking ton. It really does truly help me out to get my video more out there so that people could see it, and like more like on the sidebar views and stuff like that. So please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you aren't already, guys, and comment below with any questions that you have in regards to this video. So I hope you enjoy the next clips. I hope you enjoy the next clips. I go over in depth of my favorite lower body exercises and where to keep the rep ranges at. So stay tuned for that now that you know how to grow muscle, guys. Enjoy. Love you. Alright ladies, so this is one of my most absolute favorite machines to train glutes. Why? Because it's pretty much a kickback position, but I love the machine and how it feels more so on my glutes than a normal kickback. Keep in mind that this is an isolation movement and not a compound movement. So what I would recommend here as far as rep ranges We need our hypertrophy days and we need our strength days in order to adapt and grow with any muscle. So if you're trying to do a more hypertrophy day, aka more volume, I would suggest doing anywhere from 10 to 15 reps per set. And again, if you're focusing on a strength day, then I would suggest doing 6 to 8 reps per set. Alright guys, now jumping into the fun part. Now that you understand what goes into actually growing muscle, I'm going to talk about a few of my most favorite glute movements that I swear by. So this one is going to be the Bulgarian split squat. I can definitely say that this movement contributed to any kind of growth with muscle in my glute area. It mostly focuses on your quads and any muscle group of your glutes. So give this movement a try and thank me later. Okay guys, so jumping into compound movements, we already went over how they're pretty much going to be the main movement of any routine. And not only that, but they're very, very important because compound movements hit multiple different muscle groups. So the more frequent you hit muscles, the more progress that you're going to have in the long run. So compound movements like squats or deadlifts are super, super important to incorporate into any kind of glute routine, any kind of programming that you have going on. Like, I'm pretty much confident enough to say that if you were to only do squats, you would be fine because it literally hits all of your glute muscles, hamstrings, quads, your core, lower back, literally everything. So going into the next movement, this is another movement that I highly recommend. It's another compound movement. These are Romanian deadlifts. You can either do them with the barbell, or if you want to get more isolation with it, getting in your inner hamstrings, then you can do them with dumbbells as well. This is a great movement, guys, to really, really focus on your hamstrings. I truly, truly feel them in my hamstrings every single time I do the movement, and obviously for the glutes. Okay, so this is a vertical leg press. I really, really love this machine, even though I'm so sorry you cannot find it at many gyms. But what it is a vertical leg press, and what I feel every single time I do it is it really takes like the tension off of your lower back, which you feel in normal leg presses. This focuses on your quads, your hamstrings, and your glutes. So if you see this in a gym, I highly recommend jumping on it, using it, getting the experience and the feel of it, because you cannot find them at many gyms. Sorry guys. Alright, so jumping into the next movement, this is going to be lunges. You could do them with pre-weighted barbells, you could do them with dumbbells, you could do them standing, and you could do them actually walking. Any kind of lunge movement is a great movement to add into your routine. And this is going to be more so focusing on your glutes and your quads. Last but not least, actual kickbacks. I will say that I used to be like, oh, that's just such a Fitzbowie-ish movement, but I've actually started incorporating it a lot more into my routine lately this past year, and I absolutely freaking love it. It's a great isolation movement for the glutes. And being that it's an isolation movement, it would be very, very easy to incorporate into your weekly routine 3 to 4 times a week, because it would not be as taxing on your nervous system, so you would recover a lot faster because due to it being an isolation movement. So take advantage of this movement, guys. It's one of my absolute favorite isolation movements currently. I hope you guys enjoyed that video on how to grow muscle and also my voiceover. Please guys, if you'd love to see more videos like this, please give it a thumbs up, and also comment below if you have any questions, or comment below if you want to see more videos like this. I absolutely enjoyed bringing this informative of a video to you guys. I love bringing informative videos on my channel. So if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to do that, and also subscribe if you aren't already. Love you guys a ton. Until the next video.